Hello and welcome once again to Our Time. It's great to have your company once again because we have, as usual, a jam-packed program with some interesting information for you, particularly about your heart. And also, it might be unusual, but here in South Australia we have a group of women who wear purple clothes and red hats wherever they go. It's sort of a sisterhood, and we'll discover more about that group of ladies. But first, here's the lovely Janice to find out more about your...
Now, this is a subject that has been close to our hearts because we lost our producer recently from a heart attack, John Gall. Today we're talking to someone about heart attacks. Scott Mosen is a Business Development Director for the Heart Foundation. Welcome to the program, Scott.
Thanks very much for having me.
Now, as I just said, we did lose somebody very close to us, very dear to us recently, and he had very short time to let someone know that he was in trouble. But you've had this experience yourself many years ago, a few years ago, at a very young age. How old were you when you had your heart attack?
I was 28 when I had my heart attack, and obviously it came as a bit of a shock, and I was playing touch footy with some friends at the time, and I went home to try and sleep it off. As a lot of people would probably be aware, it's those critical moments after a heart attack that you need to get to hospital, because that saves your heart muscle, and unfortunately I didn't go until the next day. So as a result of that, I spent some time in intensive care.
Did you at that time though? Was it hereditary? I mean, had you had checkups because family had some signs of?
I had a family high cholesterol, essentially, and so as a result of that, my cholesterol was just too high and wasn't being managed properly, and so it wasn't something that I was really aware of until it happened, and so obviously it's one of those risk factors that I needed to be aware of and that I missed. So
you managed to get to the hospital, and here you are today to tell the tale. But you were telling me that you actually then, was it a few years later, that you had problems again?
Yeah, I prior to, or when I had my heart attack, I just thought that I'd be fine. So I went and saw my cardiologist, I think once, which was a bad mistake, and then went about my job. And I used to travel quite a lot for my job, and I just ignored the problem. And then 6 years later, I was in Tokyo in their electronics district called Akihabara, and I felt the same sort of pain in my chest. So
were you then thinking, oh God, here we go again, or not really?
The second time round I was a lot more familiar with it, but I don't think that's a good way to be. So I tapped the colleague of mine that I was having lunch with and said, I think I need to get to an emergency department, and we spent quite some time in Tokyo University Hospital miming a heart attack to the Japanese nursing staff that didn't speak English. So it was all a bit frightening at the time, and I was there for 5 days while they stabilised me. But at that stage, the artery and vein in my legs had started to collapse, and so they put a radial stent in through my arm. And I was lucky to get back on a plane the day after the operation, which was
wouldn't have thought that had been allowed.
I don't know how it happened, but the carrier let me on board, and I flew home, and always remember a chap who used to work for an oil company at the time sitting down next to me saying that he'd had a really bad week, and I was sitting next to him thinking, I just want to go to sleep. So it was a terrible experience, but one that I learnt from, and not long after that I became a volunteer at the Heart Foundation.
Okay, and you've been with them ever since?
Yes. Well,
in a different capacity?
Absolutely. I volunteered for 6 years and thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a wonderful organisation with a lot of passionate people in it. And then recently an opportunity came up to join them. And so I changed careers, which was interesting, but it's been a great experience. And the more you learn about it, certainly from inside, the more passionate you become.
Fantastic. How did your family feel about that? You were saying your wife had actually been home looking after your children and gone back to work. But when you have a young family, that's a big step to actually change careers like that. So it would have been a very interesting time, I would imagine.
We had some long discussions about it, but she'd spent 5 years with our children, which we were very keen to make happen. I had a good position before that enabled us to have one person at home.
Yeah.
And it was great. It's been great for our children, but then that sort of sea change when you can go and do something that you feel really passionate about and love doing has been a great thing. And as I said, it's good to go to work with the sort of people that inspire you all the time.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
a great place.
No, well done. Now, we were talking before too about women and heart attacks. And I had seen something recently, I can't remember where exactly, but just the fact that women don't really take much notice. If there are just simple signs, they tend to fend it off as being something else. Oh, that's all right, I'll look after that later. So that's a huge problem.
It is, and it's probably the awareness of it. Heart disease is often seen as an older man's problem, when in fact obviously it's not, and that heart disease is still the single biggest killer of women in Australia. And I think part of our role as an organisation is to raise that awareness.
Yeah.
Heart disease kills around 3 times as many women than breast cancer, and it's an alarming statistic and something that we need to make sure that women in Australia understand.
Well, yes, because, we're sent off to have our mammograms done at certain age. So when should we start to be aware of our hearts, like speaking to our doctor and having some tests done, just to be aware of what's going on with our hearts?
I think the great thing that we can all do is take some time out just to visit our GP, and you can get a heart health check, and they take into account factors like your age, your gender, cholesterol, blood pressure, and they can give you a really good idea at what level of risk that you have. And
Yeah.
I suppose the good news for a lot of people is that heart disease has a lot of modifiable risk factors. It means that you can address it by looking at things like obesity,
Yeah, I was going to
stop
say,
smoking.
your diet obviously is one thing that you would
Absolutely.
look after.
Yeah, diet, and there is a whole host of ways that you can obviously have a much better outcome and a much longer, healthier life.
So at what age should we be doing this? You were very young, so
Yeah.
how old should we now be asking our doctors to look at all this?
Well, very different for me, I guess, because I had a familial issue, but I think of it as a whole of life problem. It's what we teach our children to eat, the nutrition that we give them when they're young.
Yes.
It's the physical activity and the days that we all get in the car and drive them to sport on Saturdays and do those sorts of things, that we educate them from such a young age into having healthy habits. So really, I don't know if there's an easy answer to that other than the fact that we need to start early and think about
Just
it as
being
a
aware.
whole of life.
It is
thing.
just being aware of your body,
Yeah.
I suppose, and your diet, of course. Cholesterols, because I lost my father from heart problems, and I know he was so set in his ways with his diet that things didn't change, even though he'd had open heart surgery. And as you get older, it's harder to change your habits. So I think really regular visits, obviously, to your GP, just to make sure that everything is as it should be.
Yeah, and if you have questions, we have a fantastic service which is actually based in Adelaide, called the Health Information Service.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and their phone number is 1300 362787, and they're staffed by qualified health professionals.
Right.
And they are really fantastic. I've spent some time in the office just listening to them talk to people about nutrition, answering questions about people that quite often have survived a heart attack and have more questions. So they'll see their cardiologist or they'll see their GP, and they might just say, well, how do I improve my diet, or how do I get healthier? And the Heart Foundation has a fantastic walking program with over 20,000 participants weekly.
Really?
And it's a great social, safe way to get out there and get a little bit of exercise in and meet new people. So there are lots of little things that you can do to improve your overall heart health.
There you go. For you at home, if you have any questions, please, the Heart Foundation are there to help you. And it might be just to visit to your GP, just to get a quick checkup, just to make sure that everything's on track. Thank you so much for coming in and talking to us, Scott. We wish you all the very best and stay healthy.
That's great. Thank you.
As
we're getting older, we often hear advice from older ladies about what we should do or what we could do as we age gracefully, as we hope to do. And very often on Facebook you hear little poems by older ladies. I remember reading one about, when I grow older, I will... now that I am older, I'm sorry that I didn't use the best tea set, and I wish I'd picked more flowers and spent more time or less time working and more time playing. I'd like to welcome now a lady who's part of the Red Hat Society. Now, I'm not sure whether you've heard of this one, but you're about to. Welcome, Lisa Vesnava, but also known as Queen Adelaide. That is your royal title. And Lisa is Queen Adelaide, the head of the South Australian show, the Adelaide chapter of the Red Hat Society. So it started me thinking, how did you become involved in this? Or how did this start? How long has there been Red Hat Societies?
The Red Hat Society started about 16 years ago in the US when a woman in America gave a copy of the poem Warning by Jenny Joseph and a red hat to her friend for her 50th birthday. Oh. They started going out dressed as in the poem and having high teas, and women would go past and say, this looks like fun, can we join you?
Right.
The poem starts off, when I'm an old woman I shall wear purple with a red hat that doesn't go and doesn't suit me. And then she goes on to say about all the eccentric things she's going to do, like live on brandy.
I've got some here, yes. I shall spend my pension on brandy and summer gloves and satin sandals, and then say we have no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells. So she's clearly a lady, I feel, who feels, as many of us have, that we've spent most of our lives caring for others. And it's time now just to be flamboyant and have fun.
That's right. She finishes off the poem by saying, for now I have responsibilities, and the warning is when I start to wear purple with a red hat.
Oh, it's a warning for everybody else.
Yes.
Beware.
Yes.
The ladies in the red hat.
And this happened about the time the internet took off, and Sue Ellen Cooper, who we call our esteemed Queen Mother, started the Red Hat Society, and it spread over the internet. And there are women all over the world in countries, particularly in the US and Canada, but all over Australia, New Zealand, the UK, they're in Germany, France.
Amazing.
And I think we have in Japan now, and we may have in Russia. And
So
we're
it's
a women's
common
social
bond.
network.
And it is. And isn't it interesting that women all over the world, of all these different cultures, all have this same sense of, let's get out there and do something?
We all have similar issues. You know, we may have ageing parents, we may have health issues, and what we've been doing all our life for others, and it's now time to have a bit of fun for ourselves.
Sure. So when did you become involved?
I discovered the Red Hat Society when I was visiting family in Northern California and I was in an old cowboy type town, and we were walking along and we saw all these women dressed in purple with red hats having high tea, and they told me about the Red Hat Society. When I came back, I found that there were two groups here in Adelaide, and I joined them, and then after a while I decided I wanted to be a queen too. So you register a chapter with the Red Hat Society, give your group a name, and the person who registered is called the Queen Mother, and you give yourself a royal title.
Is that right?
Adelaide is named after Queen Adelaide, who was the wife of King William IV, and I thought, what better royal title for an Adelaide Red Hatter than Queen Adelaide.
So what are the criteria for joining? What rules and sort of things you have to fit in with?
Well, we don't really have rules.
Right.
It's called a disorganisation, I guess you would say. So
like that
if
too.
one is over 50 or over, then you wear, the only rule is you wear purple clothing with a red hat. If you're under 50, then you haven't lived long enough for the bright colours, so you wear lavender with a pink hat.
And this is under 50 and over 50?
Yes, and they're called pink hatters.
I see.
And when it's our birthday month, we reverse the colours. So This month being my birthday month, I would normally wear red clothing with a purple hat so that when my friends meet me, they remember to say happy birthday, because our memories aren't that good.
Do you have
sometimes.
anything else in your wardrobe, or is it all purple and red?
Very little. Other than when I'm a volunteer.
Just as well it suits you. Tell me, how many groups are there in, for example, in your state, South Australia?
In South Australia there are 10 registered groups with the Red Hat Society, and there are a few other groups of ladies that get together dressed in the red and purple. Across Australia, I'm not sure how many, but they're in all states and, as I said, right across the world. And I chat with women from all across the world every day on Facebook.
Wonderful. And I understand that you had a big parade this year for Australia Day?
This year we entered the Australia Day parade, and we spent a weekend making a giant 2-metre wide red hat.
Wonderful. I think we've got some pictures of that. The hat and the parade and all the ladies looking amazing. Look at that hat. It was 2 metres wide.
It's 2 metres, sitting in my shed at home,
And
waiting for the next parade.
What was it made of?
It's made of a foam type material, painted, and we had the corks on it to represent Australia.
Of course.
I
look at these ladies.
I rode in a big red Corvette with the hat following behind, and we in the picture we represented the South Australian red hatters.
So some of these ladies are red with that purple hat, and vice versa. So the lady in the front there must be having a birthday.
Yes, that's the Victor Harbour and Goolwa group of red hatters.
Yes.
And they're a very
form of
active group.
fellowship,
They have a Facebook page called the Fluoro Fillies.
The Fluoro Fillies, I love it.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think too, often the country regions are very good at getting together and having those sorts of community
those
things.
country ladies have lots of fun.
Lots and lots of fun. So what do you do?
Initially, in the country, it can be rather daunting because you know everybody, and you suddenly start dressing differently.
Dressing differently. Have you ever had anyone who's come along and said, "Look, I'd like to be part of this organisation. I love the concept behind it, but I just don't wear purple and red, so I'd like to wear something different or just be myself"?
Well, what we find is that anybody is welcome to come along, and you will find after the first time that they will suddenly start wearing the colours. And when you go shopping, you don't see any other colour but purple and red.
Is that right?
And quite often the shyest little old ladies that you would think butter wouldn't melt in their mouth are the most wicked.
Are they really?
Yes.
Well, that's fun to hear. How do you spend your time with the group? What sort of things do you do?
Well, we get together once a month and we go out and do things. We've been to the Prospect Digital Hub and had a chat with 4 other ladies from across the USA. We did History Week at Ayers House and had high tea at Ayers House. We've taken part in the No Pants tram ride to Glenelg, which is part of the worldwide No Pants ride.
Okay.
So I have a pair of purple and red polka dot bloomers.
Right, okay.
So
Sounds like fun.
we have fun.
You do have fun. And I guess what it boils down, one of the things we talk about on our time is so many people are isolated and they feel that they don't have companionship, they can't meet people with common interests. You're a group of ladies who certainly share common interests. You don't have to be a mother necessarily, you can just be a single woman, I guess. There's no criteria there. As long as you're over 50, you wear that, and if you're not, you wear that.
Anyone can join us.
It's a fellowship group.
Even though joining the Red Hat Society is through the internet, you don't have to have the internet to join us. Probably the best way would be to either get a family member or go to your library or a community service to Google Red Hat Society, and then you can through that find a chapter close,
chapter.
or just Google Australian Red Hatters, and that will take you to the Australian Red Hat site, Matilda Rose, and she will put you in touch with a local chapter.
Thank you so much for coming in, because I think this is something that many ladies who watch this program will be interested in being a part of. It's nice to belong to a group, and a group of ladies who are obviously having a lot of fun.
We certainly do.
Good. Thank you so much for coming in, and we'll look forward to having more members of our Time audience becoming Red Hatters too. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Such interesting information. I love this, the story about the ladies who've formed like a sisterhood.
It's interesting, isn't it? Well, didn't realise that there were people like that in the world.
No, I see them quite often. They come to the theatre to see shows.
Oh, of course you
and
would.
we used to do concerts at the Adelaide Town Hall for seniors, and there would always be a bunch of the girls there.
Oh.
We'd have a wave. And
Little in their red hats.
I was thinking I might turn up in one too, but I didn't have the equipment. And
take care of your heart.
Exactly.
Now, to think that somebody so young actually had a heart attack, which then...
a good friend of mine happened to him at 24.
Yeah, see,
So
you just don't know.
Well, you need to learn to listen to your body, I guess.
And it is hereditary. You need to know about your family too, because if you have had relatives, particularly like close relatives, like your father or your mother, that have had those problems, then you...
I don't know, you can have closer relatives.
then you know what I mean. That you actually do have regular checkups. Very important.
It is. And speaking of regular things, every week we upload some information about the program to Facebook. And we also upload similar information to our website.
We do.
We're just letting you know that in the near future you'll be able to watch episodes of the program on YouTube. And that's if you miss somebody or something you particularly like to know about.
Yeah.
And we'll have some connecting links and stuff.
And we'd still like to hear from you too.
Oh,
if you
please.
like the program, there's a little thing you can press that says like.
Yes.
And we like to hear from you.
And share with your friends, even more important. But our time will be here every week for you, and as you know, it's replayed in most states a couple of times, so if you miss one of the episodes, it's very easy to say hello to us at another time.
Check with your community station.
Yes, or even on the internet, because it's got all the times
It does.
even and
It
everything.
does.
We're very civilised here. Keep yourself nice till next time we meet on our time.
See you then. Bye.